everyone. Hope you're having a great start to your week. Welcome into an all-new episode of Timeout Tuesday, where we welcome in college basketball analyst Mike O'Donnell, who's here to break down all things American hoops, of course. Mike, last week we talked about a lot of freshmen that have made an impact so far already in this league, but there's also been some transfers that have left their mark as well. How important have transfers been, not only across the American, but across the country this season?
It's added a whole nother level of recruiting for college coaches. They're not just recruiting high school players or prep players or junior college players. That new NCAA transfer portal has really become a whole different kind of avenue for college coaches to bring in new players, because when you bring in a freshman, you're trying to indoctrinate that player into your culture, your offensive scheme, your defensive scheme. With a transfer, remember, unless it's a grad transfer, that player has to sit out through that transfer year. So you get an opportunity to really kind of develop and mold that player for almost 12 months. And then when they're getting ready to play, there's very little lag time because they already understand what you expect from them on both ends of the floor, inside the locker room, and what their role is. So it's been a really it's been a huge thing for college coaches with the transfers coming not just from Division I programs, but also you're seeing a trend as well, Division II going up to Division I. So it's a huge recruiting avenue for college coaches.
One transfer that had a lot of hype surrounding him heading into this season was UCF guard Aubrey Dawkins, Coach Dawkins' son, who transferred from Michigan and sat out last season. Now that he's finally playing for the Knights, how much of a boost has he added to that team this year?
Yeah, how about that recruiting phone call for Coach Dawkins, giving a shout to his son?
Over the dinner table.
Exactly. But he transferred from Michigan, and Michigan was very upset when he left because he was sixth man of the year at Michigan. And when he came into UCF, he was scheduled to play last year, but then ended up hurting his shoulder. So he essentially hadn't played college basketball for 2 full years. Mentally and physically, that is incredibly draining. But Aubrey Dawkins has turned into not just one of the better players on UCF, he's one of the best wing players in the American Conference. He's a tremendous three-point shooter. He's had games where he's hit 4 or 5 threes, and he's an incredible athlete. I really believe that Aubrey Dawkins is a pro, but the biggest thing that he's kind of added an element, really it's an increased offensive efficiency for UCF that's been the biggest difference, because he's come in and essentially revitalized that offense. It had either been you go inside a Taco Fall, or B.J. Taylor makes a play at the end of the shot clock off a ball screen. And he's taken a lot of taken the load off of B.J. Taylor's back from a scoring standpoint, and it's also opened up opportunities for Taco Fall in the middle. So adding Aubrey Dawkins, who will be making a lot of money one day, he is no question, he's a pro. He fits the NBA system a lot. Has added another element to UCF, and that's why one of the reasons why they were picked preseason, American Conference #1 team. And Aubrey Dawkins, he's playing like an all-conference member right now.
Dawkins and the Knights will have a chance to make a very big statement this week. We'll get to that in a little bit. However, down the road at USF, guard LaQuincy Rito, the transfer out of Gardner-Webb, he's been doing a little bit of everything for the Bulls this year. He had a triple-double, in fact, at Temple earlier, but it wasn't your stereo triple-double, Mike. Steals, assists, and points. Why has LaQuincy been causing havoc for other teams?
Well, he might be the best two-way player in the American Conference first. LaQuincy Rito is a good three-point shooter. He is a good offensive player. He is a very good point guard. But the other things that he does, not just outside of scoring, is what make him borderline elite in the American Conference, because he's playing like an all-conference candidate right now. He leads the American Conference in steals, and that's also good for top 5 in the country. And LaQuincy is one of the best assist men in the American Conference as well. When you get a triple-double, like you said, Haley, with points, assists, and steals, that is a rare feat. It's usually points, rebounds, blocks, points, rebounds, and steals. And so it's really kind of speaks to the presence that LaQuincy Rito has for the South Florida team. He's just not a great offensive player, and he's not just a great defensive player either. He's a mixture of both. He was able to seamlessly transition into the point guard position for South Florida. What's even more impressive, Haley, is that there are 12 new faces for South Florida. And LaQuincy Rito has been the point guard for this team, where it's not like these guys have been playing together for a year or 2 years. He's able to organize the offense and lead this team in a way that's really incredible with so many new faces. really the only main face coming back from South Florida is David Collins. So just an unbelievable job by Coach Brian Gregory putting LaQuincy Rito in a position to succeed, and then Rito stepping up to the challenge and just being one of the best point guards in the American Conference, leading South Florida in 5th place in the American Conference this year.
Mike, let's head to the state of Texas. SMU forward the transfer from Duquesne. He started every game as a freshman there, and he's done the same so far after sitting out a year on the Hilltop. Why does he fit so well into Tim Jankovich's system?
Well, he fits it well because he's one of those wing players that can play multiple positions. And he can guard multiple positions as well. That's what makes him so valuable. You know, SMU's under the radar this year. They're only a few games out of that coveted 4th place in the American Conference, and Isaiah Mike is one of the big reasons for that. He's a great complement to Jamal McMurray and Jeray Foster. In that Mike, he can get to the rim like Foster and attack the basket. He's a great slasher. He's an incredible athlete. He's got a 45-inch vertical leap. But he also gets to the free throw line a lot as well, and he shoots 80% from the free throw line. He's top 10 in the American Conference in free throw shooting. That's a big deal if you can manufacture 4 to 5 points a game at the free throw line. And then he's a good three-point shooter too. You know, he's shooting close to 40% from the three-point line. He's top 15 in the conference in three-point shooting. So you have to worry about him getting to the rim. You have to respect his three-point shot. Isaiah Mike is underrated. He's kind of embodies what SMU is right now in the American Conference, who I think is the most underrated team in the American Conference. And it's one of the reasons is because of the transfer from Duquesne, Isaiah Mike.
Only a sophomore, bright future ahead for Isaiah Mike. Mike, in fact, let's take a look at some of the games on the schedule this week. Number 12, Houston at UCF on Thursday. How big of a statement can the Knights make with a big win at home against the Cougars?
Well, first, a shameless plug. I'll be calling that game for CBS Sports, so very excited about that matchup. Yes, thank you. I appreciate the setup. But Houston is obviously, if it wasn't for that loss for Temple, which was a great win by Temple, they'd be a top 10 team in the country. They've knocked off LSU, and they've really done an unbelievable job all year on both ends of the floor, which we'll get into in a second. But they're playing UCF at UCF, where UCF just dominates on the home court. This is going to be an absolute battle. It's two of the best defensive teams in the country going head-to-head. For me, it comes down for Houston for points outside of the paint. If they can hit 15-foot jumpers, if they can knock down three-point shots, they're going to be in a good position to succeed. For UCF, you want to go inside and taco fall early and often. What that does is if you can get Houston's bigs in foul trouble, who will be severely undersized in this game, it's not just Taco Fall you have to worry about. You have to worry about Chad Brown as well underneath and Colin Smith for UCF. It's a big front court for the Knights. So if they can get front court points, that's great, but they also have to take care of the ball because Houston is one of the best teams in the country in taking defensive half-court pressure and turning it into offense off of turnovers. So if UCF can limit the turnovers and they can manufacture points in the paint, they'll be in a good position. But that is going to be a battle. That's primetime Thursday night on CBS Sports. I can't wait to call that game. That's going to be just an absolute war of a game.
Houston, UCF, two teams playing some very good basketball. And if you want to listen to this guy a little bit more, make sure to tune in 7 p.m. Eastern Thursday night on CBS Sports Network. Let's look ahead to Sunday. UConn at Memphis. Why is this matchup intriguing to you?
You know, I see this as a future rivalry game in the American Conference. I see it, let me rephrase that. It's going to be a heated rivalry game coming up between UConn and Memphis. I mean, if you just think about it, you've got Penny Hardaway versus Dan Hurley. You've got Jalen Adams versus Jeremiah Martin. Alterique Gilbert versus Tyler Harris, the freshman sensation. I just can't wait for this game. And by the way, stretch your hamstrings. Make sure you ice your knees the night before because this is going to be a track meet. Both teams want to run and press and create havoc. I'm telling you right now, the team with the least amount of turnovers wins this game because it's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, it's going to be absolutely crazy. Guaranteed, the team with the least amount of turnovers, I'm calling it. Here's your hot take, Haley. That team will win. I actually really like Memphis in this game. I feel like the way that they're playing, they're coming off a couple tough losses, but speed kills, and right now Memphis has some of the fastest players in the American Conference, and if they can continue to keep that train rolling, Tyler Harris, Jeremiah Martin, this Memphis team is only going to get better as the season progresses.
UConn at Memphis, 2 p.m. Eastern Sunday on CBS Sports Network as well. Mike, the game we cannot ignore. The top 25 matchup on Sunday, Cincinnati at Houston, ESPN. How significant is this matchup going to be moving forward?
It's the fight for first place. You know, that earlier we talked about Houston and UCF being a battle, and Houston essentially holding on to that #1 spot. But this Cincinnati team might be the most underrated team in the country. It seems like every year they don't get enough respect. Coach Cronin, the Bearcats, everybody labels them as just a defensive team. And that's great and that's fine. But every team in the nation hates playing against Cincinnati. They're in second place in the American Conference. Nobody wants to line up against the Bearcats because of how physical they are, because of how strong and athletic their front court is. You have to worry about a potential player of the year in Jerron Cumberland. This is going to be World War III. I mean, this is two physical teams that both pride themselves on defense and rebounding. Patience is the name of the game for Houston on the offensive end. You know that Cincinnati is going to have a game plan defensively. They must stay patient, and if they can find ways to manufacture three-pointers, I think they're going to be in good shape. I think it's going to be very difficult, similar to the UCF game, for Houston to score points in the paint. I think Cincinnati's front court is too tough, too physical, too good, too athletic. Houston's guards are going to have to make outside shots. For Cincinnati, it comes down to, can they score with someone other than Jerron Cumberland? Because if Houston holds Jerron Cumberland under 15 points for that game, Cincinnati has a tendency to struggle in those type of games. So if Kane Broome and Justin Jennifer, if they can be in double figures, if Kane Broome can score 14, 15 points in that game, you'll see Cincinnati probably with the lead. I really feel like those two guys, those are the keys to the game for Cincinnati. If they can have big offensive games, the Bearcats will be in really good shape against Houston.
Houston, of course, only one loss so far this season, up to their highest ranking so far this year at number 12. In fact, their highest ranking in about 35 years. We talked about it. They have UCF, and then they have Cincinnati. What are the chances the Cougs come out of this week 2-0 at the end of it?
Oh, I absolutely think there's a great chance Houston comes out of it. I don't think it's realistic, though. I think it's really hard. You know, when you look at the schedule, Coach Sampson's like, who scheduled this conference that I got to play UCF and Houston back-to-back this year? But it's an opportunity for them to gain quadrant 1 wins and increase their net profile, the NCAA net profile that breaks down how good a team is from a ranking standpoint. That's what the selection committee is going to use. Houston needs another signature win. If they beat UCF, that's a great quadrant 1 win. If they beat Cincinnati, that's an even better quadrant 1 win for Houston. So if they can even just split in this week, that's still a win. Now, obviously, Coach Sampson's going to be prepared enough to where he's going to want to go in, and obviously you want to win those 2 games, no question. That's an obvious statement of the week. I understand that. But if they can at least split and gain one of those major wins that the committee looks for, that's a big deal when you're talking about seeding, because right now, Houston, their profile, if they can get 1 or 2 more high-profile wins, 1 or 2 more quadrant 1 wins, they might be looking at a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. That is a huge deal for seeding who you're going to be matched up with, and then geographically it really helps as well. So be on the lookout for that. If they can at least split this week, Houston's going to be in really good shape.
Exciting week ahead for the American Conference. Mike, as always, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Always looking forward to it.
Appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for taking some time out of your Tuesday. Same time, same place. We'll see you back here next week.